Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Hart. Going to be breaking down this four-game NBA slate here on DraftKings, talking through some of my favorite early look core plays, doing a game-by-game breakdown, and then building a potential lineup around those core plays. So if you're new to the channel, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. Turn on that notification bell. Check out my price pick video, which will be out later today. And let's get into this breakdown. Before I get into the breakdown, just want to do a quick look at my lineup. Right now, really good shot of taking down this tournament here. It's a small single entry tournament, so the prize obviously isn't a ton, but right now in third place, winning $100. So hopefully Vanderbilt can pick it up. Hopefully that Miami game stays close enough for Bam to get in there and get some fourth quarter run because he has a chance to get that double points and kind of finish with hopefully close to 40, 45 if he does really well. So hoping and praying these guys can keep it close and do well here for the next 15, 20 minutes of these games. So we'll have to wait and see tomorrow if I get this takedown. But right now it's looking good. Obviously, we have a small four-game slate here. And before we get into it, just want to say I apologize for not putting these slate breakdowns out earlier. And I'm going to try to make them a little bit shorter as well to try to maximize the info I give you guys as well as the potential lineups. And then and then send it out to you guys. And obviously, once the day unfolds, I can update you guys on my Twitter and free Patreon as well. So make sure to check out those things. As I said, we'll have a price fix video out for today as well. But getting into the small four-game slate here, we have Toronto versus Washington. On the Toronto side, Pascal's price has plummeted to 9,000. This is a very appealing price tag for Pascal. The minutes haven't been great on him recently. Obviously, that was a close game, saw 35, only 33 in a blowout, and then 34 in a pretty close game there. Before that, he was seeing close to 40 minutes a game, so something we may have to monitor. But at 9,000, I do think Pascal in this matchup is very, very appealing. Fred VanVleet, just more of a secondaries play there, coming off of 1 of 11 and 3 of 12 performance. So doesn't look too great right now, but he still has upside. Scotty Barnes is just there for me. Sure, he can land on him, but I just don't think there's a need. Jakob Poeltl, I think he's a solid play at 6,200. It's just they're not going to close the game with him. As we've seen, he's going to see 30 minutes max. It was looking like maybe in that Chicago game he's going to see more minutes, but he played midway through the third quarter, and then he did not play the rest of the game. They did not close with him. So that's the risk with Jakob Poeltl. You just need him to do enough in those 2.5, 3 quarters before he gets pulled. OG's there. I don't mind taking a shot on him. Had a nice bounce back game there, 31.5 fancy points. Precious should see 12 to 15 minutes off the bench. Same thing with Boucher, 12 to maybe 20. He could, randomly go off. They did sign Will Barton, which kind of muddies the waters for a bunch of these guys. Gary Trent is there at 5'5". Really right now, it's just I'm going to stick with Pascal. He's the safest. Adding in another guard off the bench. I don't know if, Barton will get much run, but there's just a ton of people there playing. So I just like sticking with the main guys and the high usage guys, which is Pascal, coming in a very solid price tag and a great matchup. Porzingis should be back for this game. So with him back, not a lot of interest in these guys of like Beal, Kuzma. I still think Porzingis is solid. It's a good matchup here. We've seen him have huge upside, even playing alongside Beal and Kuzma. So he'd probably be the one I lean towards. But Beal and Kuzma are fine secondary options. With Porzingis back, Gafford kind of drops back down. Sure, he's still playable. 5,300. He will see mid 20s minutes, maybe closer to 30. But I don't think we can expect 34 from him. He's also super foul prone, so there's that risk there. Denny, I think off the bench, he's still a viable option. Should see mid 20s minutes. He's usually pretty productive. Shot 2 of 9, but still got you 22 and almost 22.5 fancy points just because he's a very solid rebounder. Didn't get any assist blocks. It was kind of weird because a lot of the people on the Wizards last game just did not get any peripheral stats. They're all just kind of scored or rebounding. And that was it. No like assists, blocks, or steals. But yeah, I think Denny off the bench does appeal to me. Delon Wright should probably start again with Monte Morris out. But, he's just more of a decent value play at 4,600. He's not going to shoot the ball a ton. You're really need him to do well defensively with those peripheral stats. Jordan Goodwin maybe gets like 10 to 15 minutes of backup run. That's really it. Not a lot to love there. Not a lot of core plays as right now, or early core plays from that game. Moving on to Philadelphia and Dallas. Philadelphia is playing tonight, so maybe Embiid's back for tomorrow. We don't know yet. Maybe they rule out Harden, but I'm assuming Embiid might be back since it was a back-to-back. They want to hold him out versus Miami tonight. Play him versus Dallas tomorrow. So if Embiid's good to go tomorrow at 10-8, I think that's way too cheap in this matchup versus Dallas. It's Embiid. We're getting him at one of the cheapest price tags we've seen on an Embiid pretty much all season. since pretty much the start of the season. So yeah, I mean, Embiid looks fantastic at 10-8. We just got to keep an eye out if he actually does play for tomorrow. If he's back, Harden is a very solid spin up play as well. And then Harris, Maxey, and Melton just become strong secondary plays. I guess Melton's just a lot riskier. I don't think he's a need to get to him. So I would just say, stick with Embiid, stick with Harden, and then Harris and Maxey are very, very solid secondary options. Maxey's having a good night tonight. So is Harris with Embiid out. So I just stick with the main four as always on Philly. On the Dallas side, Luka just still a little bit too pricey for me playing alongside Kyrie. Like, sure, he has a decent ceiling, but 12K for Luka, where he's not going to have like that 70, 80 point upside like he did at the beginning of the season because Kyrie's there. It doesn't appeal to me. Kyrie 9,400 seems okay. They're just more of contrarian options. Wood off the bench only saw 18. He's just not seeing a ton of minutes. So hard to get to him. Hardaway, Green, Bullock, Kleber, all these wings and like small forwards. Hardaway plays good amount of minutes. You just need him to hit his shots. It's just there's not a lot to like here on Dallas. Like, to be honest, Kleber was supposedly on a minutes limit, saw 24. So at 3,300, I think he's a fair value play. A guy who can get some rebounds, can hit some threes. So I do think they'll play him a decent amount. Foul probably will be foul trouble for a guy like Powell. Holiday's there. They just have a ton of people. So right now, I'd really only stick to Luka and Kyrie if you want to play someone, and then maybe taking a shot on Kleber as some value. So right now, I do think I'm going to throw him in there, but we'll have to wait and see if that minutes limit is still there. Moving on to Indiana and San Antonio. Very, very appealing game here for the Indiana side. For the Indiana side here, obviously a fantastic matchup. I think Haliburton looks great. Same thing with Turner. Just the downside at times with Haliburton is he's not aggressive at times. As you can see, only 9 shots, only 11. Like, he's a guy who should be shooting like 15 to 20 times a game. I don't know why he doesn't, but he obviously makes up for it with those assists, has a double-double upside. So he looks great there at 9,200. I really like him. I really like Turner there. It's obviously hard to trust him shooting 80+% pretty much 3 games in a row, but we know he has very solid upside. He's very foul prone, so at times he does have low minutes, 28, 32 in close games just because of foul trouble. But once again, great matchup here. Really like him versus Zach Collins. So those two look fantastic. I do really like Buddy Hield a good amount. A guy that will go under the radar. We know he has decent upside. It just comes down to, can he hit his shots? He hasn't been aggressive recently. The 9-2. Like, what? What are you doing out there, buddy? But yeah, I think he is interest for me. Same thing with Mathurin. Naismith is a decent value play. Now, he has been losing some minutes due to foul trouble and because Jordan Noir has been productive off the bench here. So 3,400. You could definitely take a shot on him. Now, the minutes aren't guaranteed. If Naismith stays out of foul trouble, they could definitely leave Naismith in there. And Jordan Noir can maybe see 10 to 15 at most. But he's definitely worth a mention. I mentioned Tice as well. He should see 15-ish minutes. He's been productive as well at pretty much a flat minimum price tag. That's really it. It's really just kind of sticking with the main two for me, but there are some decent GPP options. On the Spurs side here, Keldon Johnson, questionable. Vassal's questionable, but should be good to go. It looks like he's going to be back. Trey Jones is questionable. Brandon Ham's questionable. So there's a lot going on here with the Spurs side, which is very frustrating. It makes it very hard to break down. But I'm assuming with Vassal back, maybe they rest Johnson. Maybe they keep him in. If everyone's good to go, really no interest for me in this side. Unless Vassal's off a minutes limit, I love Trey Jones is off that minutes limit. But if everyone's like on a minutes limit and everyone's playing, maybe Zach Collins is my favorite. I mean, everyone's kind of cheap, but it's just like you got everyone back, so the value plays like Bates, Diop, Brandon Ham, Graham, Bassey are kind of out of play. And it just comes down to, like, are these guys on minutes limit or are they off of them? So right now, I'm going to just kind of wait and see and then update you guys tomorrow once we get more news. Moving on to the last game, obviously a fantastic matchup here between the Clippers and Golden State. Really love the price tag on Kawhi Leonard. Same thing with Paul George. Russ has been seeing not the best minutes. He saw 39 that first game. Obviously went into double overtime. But then he saw 25 and 28, which you don't like to see. He's been super, super productive, but it's just like the minutes. Like, can he keep up this production in that amount of minutes? I think so, but there is that risk to him at 7,000. Maybe they change things up because they have lost 2 straight as well with Russ on the team. So I don't know. Maybe they get weird. There is that risk, but at 7,000, I think he looks the most appealing just because of his upside. But I think it's a lot safer to stick with Kawhi and Paul George. Zubac is viable in tournaments. Played 20 minutes in his first game back in like 2 weeks. It was decent. We know he has decent upside, but don't know if you had to go to him. Plumlee, only saw 14 with Zubac back. Powell, I like him a good amount. Had that disappointing game against Denver. Came back, played 25 minutes, shot 414, so did not shoot the ball well. But we know he's going to be in the candidacy for sixth man of the year. He's been very, very good off the bench recently. So I like him in tournaments. If he's shooting the ball well, he should see close to 30 minutes. So I think he's a very, very solid play there at 4,900, especially if you're not going to pay up for one of the studs on the Clippers side. You're going to want a piece from this game. And I think Powell is a very solid play there, especially going against the secondary guys of Golden State. So I do like Powell a good amount there. And that's really it. There's no need to get to any of these value guys unless it's Batum. They're all going to play anywhere between like 10 to 20 minutes and just not be very productive. On the Golden State side, a lot of interest in Poole and Thompson. I mean, obviously they're going to play a good amount of minutes, about 35. They're going to shoot the ball both probably 20 plus times each. So I like both of them a good amount here. Wiggins is still out, so I think Green looks very, very appealing here at 6,300. He's had some very, very consistent games the past like 2 months, so I like him at his price tag at 6,300. DiVincenzo is a solid secondary option. Don't mind him. Did have a very solid scoring game, which usually that's not him. Usually he's just a little bit more productive. But yeah, he looks solid. Kaminga, I guess, is okay value. Should see about 20-ish minutes. Ty Jerome is there if you want to force him in the lineup. Should see anywhere between 15 to 20-ish minutes as well. So he's viable. And that's really it. I really just like the main two guys. So right now, I think I'm going to throw in Poole, 8,200. Let's see what else here. We'll take Powell out of that spot. Let's put him in we'll put Powell in there. Small forward. Who do you want to work with here? There's a good amount of small forward options on the slate. Let's see. Who do we want to go with? Not a lot in like the mid range, so I think we're gonna have to pay up for a small forward. So with that in mind, I think I'm gonna go with Kawhi for right now. 4,500 left over. Let's see what we can fit in here. Guard position. Not a lot of value guards to like here. I think we're gonna have to go with Delon right there, 4,600. There's not much under him that you can really jam in as of right now, unless things obviously open up. 4,400 left over for the forward position. That's who we can get to here. Doug is viable. Should see 20-ish minutes off the bench. You just hope he hits his shots. So you can force him in there, but that doesn't feel great. PJ Tucker and Morris, Eric Gordon and Bullock, Boucher, Melton, Josh Green. I think it's going to have to be, Naismith or Kuminga here. Let's just go Naismith. Then 4,800 left over here for this utility spot. So we get to Mathurin. I don't mind that. Kuminga. But then it really drops off. As you guys can tell, for like the third time in the past minute, there's not a lot to love here in the like under 4.5K mark across the board for anything, unless we get some value. Everything else is just very, very forced. So it seems as of right now, it's going to be easier to get to a more balanced build and not stars and scrubs, which there hasn't been a slate like that in a while. So I don't mind it. So right now, I think I'm going to throw in Mathurin and then maybe take Naismith out. Let's see what we can go with there. And we'll leave him in and we'll just leave Mathurin in. So I don't mind this build. Obviously, everything changes once we get news. So it's not like I'm going to keep this same exact build for tomorrow. But I think we get a very solid play here in Jordan Poole, which he obviously has huge upside. 50 plus. Powell, we get a very, very solid scorer off the bench who has upside from mid 30s, maybe even 40s if you get some peripheral stats. So I think he's a very solid GPP play. Same with Kawhi. It's a great price tag on him. Minutes are there, shot attempts are there. Everything's there for Kawhi. It just comes down to, can he score like 30 plus points? I think he can in this matchup. Fantastic matchup versus the Warriors. Kleber is some value. Was on a minutes limit and still played 24 minutes, which is decent. So maybe a little bit forced, but I don't mind him. Joel Embiid, obviously, we don't know if he's going to be playing tomorrow because this is recorded early the night before. So I'm assuming he does. On the front end of back-to-back, they held him out tonight. I'm assuming he plays tomorrow. That price tag's way too cheap against Dallas. Delon Wright makes for, I guess, one of the strongest value plays as of right now just because there's no one else. Should see mid-20s minutes in the starting lineup. I think he's decent. And then Naismith and Mathurin, they're kind of forced right now. Kind of guys we just had to plug in because there's no real other values to go to. I like Mathurin in tournament settings. Naismith's okay. But yeah, that's going to be the lineup for tonight. Obviously, stay updated with me on Twitter and on my free Patreon for updates going into tomorrow before the slate starts. I might write up all the good stuff. So make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.